Injuries. I'm pretty sure we have all broken a bone, scraped ourselves, or felt pain before, either physically or romantically. You get it because it's Valentine's month? Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of this discussion. And today I will go over many times I felt about being hurt and injured, and then I will give some advice to you how to not do those same mistakes I did and not to be stupid. So, here we go. Injury number 1. Most of my IRL friends watching this should know this injury, and if you don't, sit back and enjoy. So, this is the time I broke my skull. And yes, don't jump to conclusions, just let me finish my story. So this happened around the summer of between 2nd and 3rd grade. Basically, I was spending July 4th, which is Independence Day, of course, at the Little Creek. And I was just chillaxing there with my family and, doing the regular things that a little kid would do. And I was sitting near this little grassy part that separates, I guess, the top part and the bottom part of the creek. And we were kind of like closer to more of the forest area of the hills. So we just had all that little cove area to ourselves. Eventually, an hour later, a family comes by and they sit not next to us, but more or less kind of a little bit down the creek, but still close to us. So they had kids and they were kind of throwing, rocks. Not at us, of course, because that would be pretty terrible and a pretty terrible mom. But they were just throwing it in the water or throwing it in the air. Now, I don't know what exactly happened that I was doing before, something happened. Okay, that makes no sense. But in short, I was probably just sitting by the creek playing with pebbles or something, or looking at like the little fish or the tadpoles that were near the edges of the surfaces. And then I felt some pressure on my forehead. Actually, not forehead. I felt some pressure on my head. And you could imagine that it was most likely something like, oh, maybe I just had a headache, like I didn't eat anything. That's what I thought at the time. I stumbled back and, coincidentally, there was a red chair behind me and a red towel on it. And you can see where I'm going with this. I stumbled back into that chair. I saw a splash when I was stumbling back into the chair, into the water, so I don't know what it was. And, needless to say, I was bleeding. I didn't know it at the time, I was oblivious, and I heard some muttering from my family. Eventually they come over to me and ask if I'm okay. I said a little bit, I felt some pressure on my head. They look at my head, and my mom and dad instantly run me up the hill and take me to the hospital. I still didn't know at the time, but I'm guessing that one of the kids threw a rock at me, and I guess it busted over my head. And I guess I was right, because eventually I get to the hospital, and my mom is showing me, apparently, like, if I'm okay or not, that apparently that there was a rock thrown at me, that my skull was broken. So eventually the doctor comes in, and he says that my skull is kind of broken, and that, like, it's kind of glad that it's not completely all, like, dead. So at least I'm still alive today, but he fixed it in the worst way possible. They didn't have stitches, they couldn't fix it up. So they used the next best thing. Staples. They used a stapler on me. So you could imagine the pain that I felt when they were stapling my head, my skull, my own head getting stapled. 2 months after that, I could not be in the sun for a long time because they also put some paste on my head with the staple so that the bone marrow, I think, could like get back together again. But I can't grow hair there. It's a bald spot. It's been there since, years ago. And ever since then, I just never wanted to do anything outside here or, dangerous, needless to say. Because if I do, my head is going to crack open like a peanut. And I don't want that. I don't want my brain to seep out at all. So, ever since then, people were like, hey, you have a bald spot there. I'm just like, yeah. And they're like, why? I'm like, I got a staple there. How'd you get a staple there? It's a long story. So the moral of the story, kids, is simple. don't play with rocks. That's very simple. Okay, okay. Injury number 2. Scraping my elbow. Yay. I hate this. I still have the mark to this day, as I have many scars from injuries that I'm talking about. So this happened in 5th grade. This is the second to last period of the day, and I had PE. And trust me when I say that it was a pretty warmish day, so I had no idea why I had my sweater on my shoulder with me. I wasn't wearing it, I had it over my shoulder. And we were starting our run on the blacktop, which is the cement part of the school, and then into the grass and then back out to the cement. They blow the whistle, and some kid, I guess, didn't have their shoelaces untied or something, and they tripped, but they didn't fall. They kept running, and I slowed down, right, because I didn't want to run into anybody or cause anything, and I fall backwards as if I slipped on a banana peel, and basically some kids ran over me, didn't care, like, they didn't break my glasses, of course, thankfully, but they technically contributed to me getting burned on the cement. So I got up, and the teachers weren't even really looking in my direction. They were just like looking at their timer for the run. And I looked at my elbow, it was burning, and I touched it. It was bleeding, and it burnt, and it hurt. Now you're probably wondering, did you go to the teachers and tell them about it? No, I didn't. Like the pansy that I am, I literally just ignored the fact that my shoulder was in pain, burnt on the cement, and I was clearly bleeding. So, and before it would get infected, I would die, but I didn't, obviously. So naturally, I did the dumb thing. I kept running, alright? I kept running, ignoring the fact that I was bleeding and that my elbow was in pain. And eventually, after the run was done, I kind of went home. And then after that, I told my parents, and they put an ice pack on it and a bandage. And they're like, why didn't you, say anything? I was like, because I'm a pansy. So, moral of the story, kids, don't run on the blacktop. Unless you have to. But tie your shoelaces, more specifically. Which I can't. Alright, so that's just barely scratching the surface. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's halfway through the surface of all the injuries I've had. I can go over many of them, but most of them are kind of minor. Such as me hitting my elbow every time I pass through a doorknob. Along with that, slipping. Sometimes I slip and fall on my back and it hurts. But I'm fine. I mean, at least I don't fracture. Actually, I've never fractured a bone, which is thankful that I haven't. Getting stabbed with a pencil. I mean, no one stabbed me, of course, but like sometimes I'd accidentally stab myself with like lead or something, and it would hurt a lot. And scraping my forehead, and this is where we go for the last time. So, this happened in 2nd grade, I believe, and this is before the accident with my skull. And actually, that's surprising that I got a lot more hurt when I was younger than I do now, because I hardly get hurt, which is good. And I was running down the steep hill. I wanted to throw a rock into this little gutter thing at the hill, and it was raining a few days prior, so it was kind of wet, so I wanted to see a splash. And I fell. I tripped when I was running down that hill and ate the pavement. I got up. I saw the blood on the ground. I saw some of my skin on there. I touched my forehead. It burned a lot, like usual. And I saw some blood on my hand. And what a coincidence is that the principal, or the owner of the school, was right over there a few inches away from me, not facing me, just talking to another student who also didn't notice. I walked over to him, and he was like, oh my gosh, what the heck happened to you? Like, his look changed from talking and happy to like, you literally look like a zombie. And I was like, can I go to the nurse? And he was like, yeah. And he told the student that he was talking to go take me. So, of course, I go to the nurse. She gave me an ice pack. She told me to wash off my face, and I was bleeding from everything in my face, except for, like, my ears, of course. Like, my nose was bleeding, my mouth was bleeding when I was, like, spitting it out and rinsing my face off. And I was trying to clear off most of the blood on my forehead. and the bell rings for lunch to be over, and most of the classes come back. I'm sitting on the little, like, I guess, what's it called, one of those chairs, I guess, you'd see in, like, hospitals, and I was sitting, and it was facing the entrance to my classroom, which is pretty stupid. I don't know why my, like, own classroom was, like, across from a medic place, like, the nurse's office, and I see my class going into their, to my classroom, and the teacher's the last one. The teacher's the last one to go in. And she just gives me this dirty look as if I literally murdered somebody. Like, she didn't say anything to me, but she just looked at me with a stern look, like, you're an idiot, or like, you're a dumb kid, you shouldn't have done that. Like, she just gave me this dirty look and went into the classroom. And I was just like, what the heck happened? Like, why did she give me that look? To this day, I'm still mad about it. Like, that teacher always hated me. And the fact that she had to give me that look, like, it's not my fault, okay, that I tripped. Guess what? It's Newton's fault for making gravity. So eventually my parents pick me up and we go to the hospital. They used the same glue, which I think was pretty much the same glue they used for my forehead. Not forehead, for my skull when I busted that open. I'm pretty sure that they used that same one for my forehead. And ever since then, I've had this little shape in my skin, or forehead, that is in the shape of kind of a lightning bolt, kind of, to remind myself to never scrape my forehead, because if I do, my brain will be exposed. So moral of the story, kids, don't run down hills. Don't run it anywhere concrete at all. I mean, you can run in the grass, sure, but I mean, don't eat bugs. Trust me when I say that. Injuries suck. Like, especially for people who get fractured or are in sports. Like, trust me, I see kids in my high school injured in, like, a wheelchair, crutches, broken arm, broken leg. Like, there's even a teacher that's across from my classroom who, like, literally can't even walk. His legs are paralyzed, I believe. And it kind of sucks. Like, when I see it online, like, someone injured, I'm just like, okay. Like, if someone dies on the internet, I'm just like, okay, like, eh. And then when I see it in real life, I'm just like, man, I feel more sympathetic, more kind of sad. I guess it's just because I see it more, like, in real life, realistic, than, like, on the internet, I guess. So I feel less sympathy because I see it on a screen, not actually. I don't know. It's just weird. But if you've ever been badly injured before, let me know in the comment section below. If you have any topics for me to talk about in these series, also let me know. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.